Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Project Inspire 2000. Is this a little bit too close? And 23. So it's a tremendous honor to be there. Make me the opening speaker every year. It's unbelievable. So it's only downhill. So I want to just dispel from the outset, because I must have had 50 people come up to me and tell me, Rabbi Gordon, are we going to talk about this Harvard anti-Semitism? Wrong lecture. I think we're going to talk about that on Sunday. And I'll tell you how I think Project Inspire got this topic. So several years ago, I launched a podcast. And on the advice of a very prominent Rosh Yeshiva, who everyone in this room no doubt knows, Rosh Yeshiva said, do it in your English name. We're living in a weird world. And if the rabbi part leave out, and Baruch Hashem, it was doing very, very nicely. Just to take you back a step, started, the humble beginnings was Ben Shapiro gave me his back office, so to speak. And then I got a call from Spotify, which is a big platform of podcasts. And they said we should add a tagline, lessons for life I did not learn at Harvard. And literally the next episode, the whole thing blew up. So there's something that's very fascinating apparently about this topic. I think I should dispel from the beginning. So I went to Harvard Law School and Harvard Business School, and I have no regrets, a lot of tremendous relationships. But I made a comment once, and I'm going to stand by that comment, that I did not learn a single bit of life wisdom at Harvard University. Zero life sagacity at supposedly the premier Ivy League school in the United States. So on the advice of the Hanhala of Project Inspired, looking back at 15, 20 years of public speaking, various organizations, and what I've done, and I hope this is sort of set the tone for our convention, and hopefully we can walk away with some pearls of life, is 4 things that I believe every single person in this room experiences, and none of the tertiary educational institutions talk about. And it's a sad thing because people leave the hallowed halls of the Ivy League schools and they don't have the tools to navigate the journey called life. So I can guarantee you that every single person who walked into Project Inspire 2023, into this incredible opening lecture, every single one, I'm hoping and praying, has pain in your life. The Gemara says very, very clearly, if you go 30 days without some kind of pain, without some kind of adversity, without some kind of a vicissitude, it's not a good sign. The Gemara says very, very clearly, in fact, the Rambam talks about the fact that the highest form of pain that a person can possibly feel is indifference. So proof positive that HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves you is, we all know the GPS for life. Certainly we all know the very final destination is going to be the Chevra Kadisha. And along this journey, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to make sure that we recalculate. And that we, in our myopic perception of life in the world, often perceive as pain. Who does Hashem think He is? And hopefully we're going to learn today that that's proof positive. If you have pain in your life, if things aren't going according to this preconceived idea of what you thought life was all about, it's certainly proof positive that the Almighty loves you. So rule number 1 that they certainly do not teach you at Harvard is how to deal with adversity. All of the Sfarim say that one thing in the journey called life that's a guarantee is pain. But suffering is an option. Story is told about a mother. She's in the kitchen cooking for Shabbos. She hears a loud scream coming from the living room. She runs into the living room and she sees her beloved daughter, let's call her Rachel, 9-year-old, sweet little girl. And she says, Mom, and the mother says, what happened to your Rachel? And Rachel says, Mommy, my Barbie doll's head fell off. And she realizes this is a teachable moment. This is a time where she can impart one of the most important lessons that we all learn in this journey called life, and that is how to deal with the inevitable adversities, with the vicissitudes in life. And she said, Rachel, I want you to come with me to the kitchen. And her daughter walked into the kitchen with her mom, and she said, "You'll notice on the stove, there are 3 pots. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour water in pot A, pot B, and in pot C. And what's going to happen is I'm going to crank up the flame on the stove under each of these pots. And you will notice after a time that this water will start to boil. And my beloved daughter, one thing I will guarantee you in this journey called life, there are going to be times where you're going to be in boiling hot water." She called her daughter back 20 minutes later. Lo and behold, the water had boiled. In pot number A, she threw in some carrots. In pot number B, she threw in a raw egg. And in pot number C, Rachel's mother put in some coffee beans. And she said, "Rachel, I'd like you to watch this and remember this lesson for the rest of your life." She said, "I love you with all my heart, and I will tell you when you land up in the inevitable boiling water, the hot water in life, HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not want you to be pot number A like a carrot. Because a carrot goes into a boiling hot water and it fragments and it falls apart. And it's little pieces at the bottom of the pot of life. That is not the way a Jew is supposed to respond to the inevitable adversity of life. And my beloved Rachel, I don't want you to respond like pot number B. Pot number B, the egg that was put into the boiling hot water, became a hard-boiled egg. And she said, "My beloved Rachel, I do not want you to become like this egg, to become hard, to become stoic, to become bitter. That is not the way a Jew should handle the inevitable vicissitudes and adversity in life." My beloved Rachel, the way that a Jew is supposed to handle the times we are in boiling hot water, it can be personified by pot number C. And in pot number C, the coffee beans turned the boiling hot water into a beautiful aroma of coffee and a beautiful smell and something that we all hopefully drink in the morning. And she said, if you realize that every single bit of the pain and suffering and setback in your life is sent to you by a benevolent, altruistic, loving God, then per force, not only is it going to be for your good, but if you did not feel this, it would be the worst possible feeling. We all know the analogy in all of our lives. A 2-3-year-old little kid goes into a doctor to be inoculated against mumps or chicken pox, and the kid gets pushed towards this doctor with a white coat and a stethoscope. And can you imagine what little Moshe's thinking, this 3-year-old kid? My mom's betraying me, and this person's saying there's this huge needle. But what's this first thing that little Moshe does after the injection? Turns back and hugs his mom. So we know ultimately that this is coming from a loving force, that it's coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who loves us, as Chazal say, more than we love our own children. So rule number 1 that they certainly do not teach you in the hallowed halls of Harvard University is that there is a way to face the adversities of life, and that's certainly not the way that we are inculcated in the secular world, and that is to ask the question why. We'll never know. We will never ever know. How do we know that? The first letter of the Torah is a Beis. The Mepharshim say that teaches us we don't really know what's behind. We don't know the cheshbonos. It's only looking ahead. And so when we hit those inevitable vicissitudes, asking why is something that at best would exhaust you, and the truth be said, you're in great company, because Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest person to ever sojourn the planet, asked this question of the Almighty, and it's something that we should know that we will never really understand as our neshamas are captured in this thing called a guf. So rule number 1 is it's to what end when you feel the pain. The second thing that they certainly don't teach you at Harvard University, and that's something that every single person in this room in the first speech at Project Inspired 2023 no doubt has experienced, and that's a phenomenon called failure. Let's talk about some secular examples. Maybe you guys know of a kid who was 4 years old, couldn't read. At the age of 7, he couldn't write. At the age of 12, he was kicked out of elementary school and was told that he has some academic problems. He's mildly retarded. My friends, you know this person today as Albert Einstein. And perhaps you've heard of a cartoonist who was determined to become a person who could develop their art. And they went from one newspaper to the next, trying to fulfill their dreams, until the person was so financially indigent that the person went to the church and told the priest in the church, I don't even have a roof over my head. And the priest said, all I can do, my friend, is you can stay in the farm barn behind the church. At least you'll have a roof over your head. And the true story is, the person sat that night on a bundle of hay. And that night a mouse came out of the corner of the farm barn. My friends, you know that mouse today is Mickey Mouse, and that cartoonist is Walt Disney. And perhaps you've heard of a woman who grew up in the South, whose dream it was to be a host on a television show. She's a person that suffered tremendous abuse. And as a young teenager, she was told after her first audition, get off the stage. This is not your calling. This is embarrassing. And my friends, you know this person today as Oprah Winfrey. What's the difference between these people and the people that call themselves a failure? The Torah says something which has been misconstrued many, many, many times. It says in Mishlei, the concept of a tzaddik doesn't necessarily mean the person who's saying Tehillim in the corner with 17 prayer shawls over his head. It means a righteous person, a person who's trying to grow. The Mishlei says that a person like that has to fall 7 times. And not like he falls 7 times and he gets up. There is no way you can reach greatness in this world and be comfortable. It's binary, it's antithetical to the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us and the world. You want to be great? There's a price that you're going to pay if you want to be great, and that's called pain. There's nothing that you're going to achieve in this world that's worth it, that has longevity, that is not going to ensure that you fail and fail several times. So somehow they prepared us at Harvard University for success. They prepared us to win the Nobel Prize, I sat 2 seats away from someone who went into politics that you might know, Barack Obama. I'm not sure if you... None of us were taught that you are going to fail. The Torah says, Pum Faket. It says the following. It says that when does the day start according to halacha, according to the Torah? The day starts at night. The Mefarshim are telling us something very, very clear. There are times, every single person in this room, it's going to be dark. But it's telling us also that you wake up the next day and HaKadosh Baruch Hu will always have light at the end of the tunnel. It's perhaps not coincidental that most of us, the first Gemara we ever learned was about a Shavas Aveda, which deals with the concept of Yush, abandoning hope. It's absolutely, completely against any Torah principle to give up hope. That's one of the reasons why we are the people of the moon and not the sun. Why? Because in all of our lives, there are times which wax and wane. There are times where we feel alone. There are times our life is more full. You will never, ever actualize your potential. You'll never reach your potential in this world without flexing certain spiritual muscles. And the medium of flexing those muscles, more often than not, are at times that are extremely painful. So rule number 1, for those that got cheap seats at the back and just coming in now, is as following. What did we not learn at Harvard University? What is life sagacity? What is the Torah teaching us that are the tools that we should impart to our children, our grandchildren, that will help us navigate this very tough journey called life? Rule number 1 we discussed so far is the fact that we will all have suffering in this world. Pain is inevitable, suffering is an option, And one thing you need to train your children and you need to inculcate in your mind's eye is how to overcome this inevitably called some kind of adversity. We don't ask why, we ask to what end. The second thing we spoke about that certainly is not taught at Harvard University is that when you fail, not if you fail, when you fail, how should you reframe? And we understand in many places throughout Shas the understanding of, if you want something, I'm from South Africa. We know a few things about gold and diamonds. Where do you find gold and diamonds? It's deep in the earth. Anything that's worth it, you've got to dig for. I spend most of my time dealing with Gen Z. It's a very sad thing, and I'm saying this only because I care. This generation is a generation where the Oxford Dictionary 4 years ago, every single year includes a new word into the English language. The new word that was included 4 years ago is the word selfie. iPad, iTunes, this is the I generation. It's a narcissistic generation that sadly is being confronted with the social media where every 7 seconds a dopamine hit means that you're living in a virtual reality. Number 3, without question, something that has become the pet peeve and was the topic of my TED Talk in London, and that is certainly the notion that happiness, the understanding of what happiness is one of the things, the phenomenon that the secular world has got so very wrong. The notion that happiness is something out there. And I think perhaps that this is taken from the Declaration of the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, because we talk about in America life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so kids grow up, certainly in America, and they think happiness is something you pursue. It's exogenous. It's outside of you. It's either in that state or in the East state. My friends, happiness is in the state of mind. And what the secular world has done, and it's a very, very unfortunate thing, is they've conflated two concepts that are very different. One is called fun, and the other is happiness. If a word doesn't exist in the Torah, the phenomenon, the atom doesn't exist. For example, there is no word in the Torah for retirement. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, when you reach 65, you're not supposed to put your teeth in a cup and go out to pasture and deteriorate. We are here till the last second. There is no word in the Torah for fun. It's bizarre. You can hear from my Brooklyn accent that my formative years certainly were not spent in this country. I've never heard the phrase, have fun, until I came to this country. I'm going to give you a scenario. You tell me if this is fun or happiness. 20 minutes standing ovation, we go nuts, we go out, and we have a kibbutz, we have a Diet Coke, we go out maybe to a little walk. Is that fun or is that happiness? That's a little bit of a gray area. Okay, so let's just say we go to the Six Flags, do a couple of 360s and vomit. That's fun or happiness? That's fun, right? What would you say about a few months ago, I walked my beautiful daughter down the aisle before she got married, and after the third step, the little tear that welled up in my left eye, by the time I reached the chuppah, I was bawling my eyes out. Are those tears of fun or those tears of happiness? What's the difference? Fun is ephemeral. Fun is here today, gone tomorrow. Happiness hits the neshama. Happiness has to touch meaning. What if you've got a billionaire who every single summer decides he's going to take his wife to the most exotic, crazy places? And one year they go to Bali, and the next year to Shmali. One year, his wife is she's got a cold, they can't slip out. They stay in New York. And they're on a ferry one day going down the Hudson, and husband and wife walk up the stairs onto the deck, and lo and behold, they see a lady just at the end of this little ferry, and they hit a little wave, and this old lady does a 360 and lands up in the Hudson River. And the husband, the hero of our story, jumps in, saves this bobber, sends up the rung ladder, and she's saved. When he looks back on his life, which is the summer that he'll always remember? Bali, Shmali, the 4 seasons, the 5 seasons, or the Hudson River. Why? Because we are wired to connect to meaning. So part of my job, as many of you know, my day job besides speaking a lot of different places, is we manage some of the most famous actors, celebrities, the biggest influence on planet Earth, and certainly some of the richest people in the world. I know these people, these are not only clients, some of these people have become friends. I can tell you, I've never met, by and large, a more dysfunctional, unhappy group of people in my entire life. So the danger of happiness being exogenous means that Unfortunately, what the Kool-Aid that most of people have been drinking is that money and success will bring happiness. They've also conflated happiness and success. Let me tell you, my friends, the big difference between happiness and success. Success is money in the bank. Happiness cannot be deposited. Success is private jets. Happiness is flying high. Success is money. Happiness is value. Success is praise. Happiness is never needing it. Success is all the money in the world. Success is doing what you love. Happiness is loving what you do. Success is envied. Happiness is shared. Most importantly, success is measured in human terms. Happiness is a divine gift. It's very sad that there are tens of millions of people who are living lives of quiet desperation, looking for this notion called happiness and thinking it's outside of them and thinking that money and fame will bring happiness. There is nothing further from the truth. Point number 4. Certainly, Harvard University didn't teach me this, and the secular world definitely does not teach this. The notion is, how many times have I spoken at different events and they say, Rabbi, it's just, this is great, it sounds fantastic, beautiful accent, but let me just tell you, I know I would be happy if. I know, Rabbi, you don't understand. If only. My friends, if is the middle 2 letters of the word life. If you look at the Lashon HaKodesh, the Hebrew word for life, Chaim, the middle 2 letters are Kadosh Baruch Hu's name. If you're connected to the eternal, if you're connected to, and we all have a part of the Almighty in us, if you understand that you are part of 0.02% of the world population, 7.8 billion people, 0.2% were bestowed with the biggest gift a human being can get, and that's a Yiddish neshama. Every single thing that happens in the world is because of the Jewish people. You think an earthquake in Turkey is stamazoi? Everything, every single thing, the spiritual power of a Jewish neshama is something that we cannot possibly fathom. So if I look at the many times I've been involved in different seminars, workshops, and I think of if only. Here's what I hear very often. Rabbi, if only I was younger. I want to tell you a beautiful thing. I don't know if any of you remember a column, the Dear Abby column. So I don't know if you know that Abby in the Dear Abby column is actually Abigail Van Buren. It's a Jewish woman who lived in Iowa. One beautiful, beautiful way she responded, and I want you to think about this. A person wrote in, Dear Abby, I've always dreamt of going to medical school, but if I go now, 7 years from now, I'll be 43. Listen to Abby's beautiful response. 7 years from now, if you don't go, how old will you be? If only is something that I hear all the time. Rabbi, if only I didn't do X, Y, Z in the past. It's such kfira. It's such kfira. I want to tell you from the biggest people that I've been zocher to learn with. Before something happens, you have something that we have that Malachim don't have, and that's called Bechira. After you do something, the fallout, everything that is a fallout is ultimately the very best thing for you. I'll tell you a true story. I spoke one year, I think it was KMR or Gateways. A woman came to the podium afterwards. I couldn't even hear what she was saying for the first few. She was bawling her eyes out. And I was trying to just maybe I could sneak in a bit of nachama and it's going to be okay. She was crying, and he's this, and he did this, and he went this, and I'm like, I realized after about 6 minutes of her screaming and shouting that she's talking about an ex-spouse. It took me about 7.5 minutes to realize she got divorced 21 years ago. How many people go through life with a handbrake up? How many people living life in the rearview mirror? It's not a Torah concept. The only thing that you have control over is this very moment, listening to this unbelievable lecture, and the future. The past, we have a matana. Before HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, Chazal said he created tshuva. When you go to the next world, it's an open book exam. Hashem's told us the questions. There's 6 questions, right? Now, it's clear in Gesher Chaim, in all the Sfarim that talk about the journey of the soul from this world to the next world, it's very clear that we're going to see the proverbial movie of your life in the next world. But you're not going to be sitting there with buttered popcorn and a Diet Coke. It's very clear from all of the Meforshim that you're sitting there with people who have met their demise before, and you're seeing a panoramic view of your life. Can you imagine there are times in that movie you're going to chalish? You want to jump under the towel. Here's the time, Project Inspire Convention 2023, where I want you to remember this for the rest of your life. You get an opportunity as to whether you see the cut version or the uncut version. How do you cut the scenes that you have charotza? How do you cut the scenes where you feel like a shlemazel? How can I do that? Tshuva. That is an absolute miracle, where the consequence of something that you've done, where you sincerely have charotza and are put in the same situation again in some iteration, that will be cut in the next world. And that's why no Jew should be bitter. We should all try and be better. That is an unbelievable thing that a Jew has, and that's why Yom Kippur is such one of the happiest days of the year. So what are the if-onlys that I hear? If only I was younger, if only this didn't happen in the past. So I've been asked to try and keep some time for questions, which I'd like to do, because this is not an interactive discussion. I'd like to just summarize where we are. We said there are 4 basic things that they certainly don't teach you in the hallowed halls of the Ivy League. So it certainly didn't teach me at Harvard University. And that's number 1, how do you overcome adversity? I guarantee you that every single person in this room has pain, has suffering, has a peckle. There's no question. When I flew off from Los Angeles here and I saw the carousel number 3 at Delta, why didn't I pick up the bag of the guy next to me? Because the bag that belongs to me, the peckle that belongs to me, is perfectly customized for me. And the pain that you have, I can guarantee you, the peckle that you have, the person next to you couldn't handle, and vice versa. Perfectly customized. I'll tell you one of the milers of speaking at a lot of conferences for many, many years. It's unbelievable how many say, Rabbi, you know the guy over there at the table, look at him, he's got a private Seder room. I know that guy over there, okay? You have no idea what's going on behind closed doors. Would you be worried to marry to that machashefa? You have no idea what's going on. It's an optical illusion. A doctor doesn't lean over at a carpenter and say, can I have your hammer? And neither does a carpenter. We get the tools and we get exactly customized what is exactly to be masakin out in a shoma. Adversity and pain is not bad. Pain is the price you're going to pay for greatness and to fulfill your tafkid. We went on number 2 and we said that the idea of failing doesn't make you a failure. It's the person who won the gold medal for the high jump, they were first walking the other way. Going backwards, failure is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's way of saying recalculate. The third thing that we discussed was the concept of if only, and people, every single person is given certain cards. What we have to do in this world is not try and give the cards back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You made a mistake. I didn't order this baby. I didn't order this spouse. I was supposed to be on the Forbes list. Supposed to say Moshe Goldberg, not Elon Musk. Every single thing that happens, every single peckle, every single tool is customized, and you've got to understand, according to the Vilna Gaon, and that's several hundred years ago, every single neshama after his time has been here before. B'derech klal, as a general rule. So how do you know, in a different iteration, what's going on? When people say, Chanan, Rabbi, the reason why I did this is because it's an insane and myopic way that we look at the world. It's one of the reasons why when we were trained in Kiruv many, many years ago, I was told by Rav Noach, if someone in the corner asks you about the Holocaust, don't you dare answer. Don't you dare. It's insensitive. It's when people try and second guess why HaKadosh Baruch Hu does them, it's arrogant and it's not the way that we're supposed to handle things. The 4th thing we said was, what is the 4th thing we say? Okay. How do you failure? Happiness. Okay. So I'm going to give you 10 rules and then we're going to open up for questions. 10 lessons for a successful life, 10 lessons, and none of these lessons, I guarantee you, are taught at any secular institution. And if there's no other reason why you came to Project Inspired, you can go home, that's it, forget the Shabbos, I'll email you the challenge. These are the 10 lessons for a successful life. Lesson number 1. If it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. Let me ask you the following. Yale University, the second best Ivy League school, did an experiment. They took twins. They took one group, right? They took identical twins. In one group, the subject group, they said, certain Gedarim, you got to be back at 7 o'clock. You can't do this. You got to make sure that you eat this. The other group, complete hefka. You want to go until 3 o'clock in the morning to the party? Gesund to hate. You want to smoke? Nothing wrong. Group A and Group B. They tracked these two groups 20 years later. A group that had Gedarim, they had certain rules, and the other group, the other frat house, oy vey vey. 25 years later, which group do you think grew up to be juvenile delinquents? With no Gedarim. That's not why we're here in this world. That's not why we're here in this world. Okay. If it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. Lesson number 2. The secret to having it all is believing you already do. The secret to having it all is believing you already do. So in all of my speaking years, which has been many years, I think the hardest topic I was ever given was last year Pesach at Gateways. And they gave the topic, this is being recorded, so I have to just water it down a little bit. They gave the topic, Klal Yisrael has never ever been so materialistically successful. We've never had so much money. Why are we not happy? Tough topic. What's going on in Klal Yisrael today, this is another topic for discussion, where people are trying to out-kiddish each other and out-schwitz each other. Having it all, the secret to having it all is believing you already do. Lesson number 3, a negative mind never gives you a positive life. I'm going to talk on the 4th, I think the last day, about the concept of the law of attraction, about the power of trach gut soll sein gut. What does that mean? Have a positive mind. What does it mean? Can you draw in positive things by having a positive attitude? Number 4, if plan A fails, remember there are 25 more letters. So I remember Rabbi Noach telling me personally, Rabbi Noach Weinberg, saying he wanted to start a yeshiva for Balei Tshuva. They thought he was Meshuggah. He attempted to launch the first attempt, bombed out completely. Second, bombed out. Third, terrible failure. The 5th time, Reb Noach was walking across his living room and his Rebbetzin said, Reb Noach, where are you going? He said, I'm going to the Kail. That's it. She said, that's not your tough kid in the world. You're supposed to be a disruptive person who's mashpia on many people. And Reb Noach started in his living room with 10 people, a yeshiva called Eshet Torah. Plan A doesn't work for anyone. If you look at how Microsoft started, it wasn't supposed to be a company the way it is today. Google was not supposed to be a search company. Number 5, nothing goes away until it teaches what we need to know. If you think that there's something that's painful, there's something that's bothering you, if you get bitter and you have tainas on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's really probably not going to help dissipate the pain. HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves you. He's teaching you something. Only once you've done the cheshbon hanefesh and understand that and all the Sfarim say, if we sit and we think about it, we will figure it out. Lesson number 6. Again, how many times do I hear, Rabbi, I'm 72. It's too late. I got so inspired. It's amazing. You don't understand. I'm holding by the Chevra Kadisha. Start where you are. Use what you have and do what you can. That's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu expects. He doesn't expect you to have that guy's bank account. He doesn't expect. Start where you are. When's the best time to plant an oak tree? Probably about 20 years ago. When's the second best time to plant an oak tree? Right now. It's never too late. It's never too late to be the person that you're supposed to be. Lesson number 7. If it's important, you'll find a way. If it's not, you'll find an excuse. So I have had this chus in my life of being around a lot of successful people in Torah, some of the most successful people in entertainment in the world. one of the common things for sure is there's no excuses. The quintessential book on success, which is written by Professor Angela Duckbook at Pennsylvania, they looked at all the different criteria of why people are successful. It had nothing to do with looks. It had nothing to do with IQ, a little bit to do with accent. It was about grit. It's grit, intestinal fortitude, never, ever, ever, ever giving up. Those are successful people. I'll tell you a true story. My first case, one of my first situations out of law school was a person that you all know. So let me tell you about this person. He wrote a script about an underdog, a script about overcoming adversity. He went to one studio, they laughed him out. They said, "Are you nuts?" Next studio, he went to studio number 6. They said, and this guy, he was absolutely living on the couch of a friend and not a penny to his name. They said, "We'll buy the script of you for $250,000. The lottery. Here's the condition. You cannot play the protagonist. We're going to have one of our actors." So Sylvester Stallone walked out and he played Rocky for Paramount. 8th time. Lesson number 8. The sign of a beautiful person is that she sees beauty in others. It's such a beautiful thing in Ein Tov. So I asked Adam Gadol before, what's one of the hardest things? What's one of the hardest things for us? Is to really have nachas when Yen is successful. It's a very difficult thing. And yet we can do it when there's a chosin and kala. We go sugar, right? But what happens when that guy got a break and now he's living in David's village? That's a madrega. Why? Because that's true emunah. If it was supposed to come to me, the Eibishter knows where you are. Lesson number 9. If you focus on results, you'll never change. If you focus on change, you'll get results. Lesson number 10 is something I want you to think about as we continue the journey over Shabbos, Motzei Shabbos, and Sunday, because I think that this really encapsulates a lot of what I'd like to share and the tone we want to set for Project Inspired, and that's as following. One thing that everyone has in this room that even Malachim don't have, and that's Bechira. You have freedom of choice. Your life is the result of the choices you make. If you don't like your life, it's time to start making better choices. I want to end by telling you a quick story. What times are we supposed to end? 4 o'clock? Oh, am I over time? What time? Okay. So why are we in this world? Why are we in this world? What is the lesson that no school is going to tell? I want to tell you a beautiful story of a high school reunion. Secular high school reunion. 30 years after high school, the class gets together, and one of the guys, let's call him Larry, looks across the dance floor. Clearly, this is not exactly B'nai Brak. Looks across the dance floor, and he just sees a lady, the way she's carrying herself, so erudite. She seems so refined. He goes to the principal and says, "Mr. Wilson, I don't remember that girl, when we were in high school, but can I ask you if you would get her phone number for me? I really would appreciate it." He said, "I'll do that with pleasure, but I just need to remind you, the woman that you appoint to, his name is Jennifer, and she's blind." He said, I can see she's got character, she's refined. I'm telling you, this is who I'm supposed to marry." And lo and behold, Larry dates Jennifer. One date leads to another date, and they are wed. And they move into a little place in Brooklyn, and it's bothering Larry so much that she cannot see the sunset. She can't see the beautiful plants in Central Park. And he's starting to research, how can I possibly help my wife to see again? And he finds out after much research that at the Cleveland Clinic, there's a retina implant. And if the operation is successful, that within minutes of removing the bandage, she'll see again. He calls up, uses his protectia at the Cleveland Clinic, and he runs back to his house in Brooklyn. He says, "Jen, you're not going to believe it. I found an operation, the retina implant. If it's successful, you'll be able to see again." But there's only one problem. There's a 12-year waiting list. And he saw a little tear well up in his beloved wife's right eye. And the pain, the vicarious pain that Larry felt, he said he couldn't do this anymore. The next day he comes to his wife and he says, "Jen, he says, Jen, phenomenal news. You're not going to believe this. We leapfrogged to the front of the line. You next. You are next. We're going to get on a plane. We're going to go to Cleveland. And I have a good feeling about this, but I need to tell you something. The doctors tell me that if the operation is successful, within minutes of removing the bandage, you will be able to see. And I don't want you to be surprised or shocked, because when you do open your eyes, and God willing you'll see a man with a white cane and dark glasses, and that's me, and I don't want you to be surprised. Off to Cleveland, operation. They're in the post-op room, the bandages start to come off, and she opens her eyes and she can see. And tears streaming down her eye. They check out of the Cleveland Clinic, they go back to Brooklyn. Weeks lead to months, and Larry wants to take his wife to Europe. She wants to see Paris, she wants to see the Champs-Élysées, she wants to see the Eiffel Tower. And after a while, Jennifer says to Larry, this is a little bit of a ball in the chain. I'm schlepping you everywhere. And this is the hardest thing I've ever had to say, Larry, but we have to get a divorce. This is not working. And Larry, being such an unbelievable, beautiful human being, said, you know, Jen, if that's what you want, if that's what will make you happy, I'm going to call my brother. He'll pick me up. I just need a few minutes. And before his brother takes him to the car and he closes the door for the last time and says goodbye to Jennifer, he says, Jennifer, I have left on the pillow in the master bedroom a letter. I want you to read that letter. Click. Brother schleps him to the car. Jenna sends up the stairs to the master bedroom, opens the letter, which read as follows. My darling Jennifer, I love you more than words can say. I want you to be happy. I want you to have a phenomenal life. I have one request, one single request. Look after those eyes, because they were my eyes. And before HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends us down to this world, he says, I'm taking a piece of me and I'm putting it in you. You have one thing, look after that neshama. 0.2% of the world population have a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself in all of us. And he's saying at the end of 120 years, you're going to be retrieved. I'm begging of you, Mamala, look after that neshama. And there's going to be distractions, and there's going to be shiny toys. The whole purpose of this journey is to make sure that you masaken this neshama and return it without the soot, without the schmutz. Bezos Hashem, as we go through the next few days together, we'll understand what unbelievable privilege it is to be part of the chosen people. We'll understand the distractions of the world. They say that this is a generation that while there's unbelievable distractions, the schus that we're sitting here on a Friday afternoon before Shabbos, and people are listening to an unbelievable class of Torah. Do you understand the schusim you have? Do you understand the reward that you have? That is only because you were handpicked. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says, you were handpicked by the Almighty. Not only to have a Yiddish neshama, but to be here in this room. Be'ez Hashem, we should make the Almighty proud. We should have wonderful Shabbos together. Thank you for listening, and good Erev Shabbos.